the challenges that a new family brings, and also for the grandchild as they're onboarding into this life.
Yeah. So my question is, and I have a feeling that you just spoke to it in a big way, the difference between sacred grandparenting and just being a traditional grandparent, right? It's part of taking on this spiritual training, however for the young one, for the grandchild. And how would you, I mean, there's so much more of that, but in a succinct, if there even is, I mean, this is fascinating because I never even would have thought about this. Sacred grandparenting versus traditional grandparenting. So because there's times that I would say go ahead. Yes.
Go ahead and finish your question there.
Okay, I'm sorry, because we have this weird delay. So to the audience, I apologize for this. We have a weird delay, and so we're kind of stepping on each other here. And I apologize to you for that too, Kathleen. I know that I have told my son, and I have taken it back many times, but I said that I will pay you back when you are a father. I am so going to spoil your children, and I'm going to load them up with sugar, and I'm sending them home to you to pay you back. Of course, I would never do that because what a horrible thing to do to the child. But it's such a different way to look at it because I see some grandparents, people who are my age, who really do want to kind of get into the mix and kind of run the show with that new grandchild. And, when that especially when that little one becomes a toddler and they're starting to get themselves into a little bit of trouble and disciplining and all of that, and how the grandparents that I'm speaking of in particular, I mean, just one person is popping into my head loud and clear that they take offense to that, and it almost makes them want to remove themselves from that grandparenting arena because, well, I'm not being heard or seen, and this isn't how we did it. And I look at that as just like the traditional. I'm not going to bend the rules. This is how it's done. It's a cookie cutter. You don't do it any other way. Where with the sacred grandparenting, you get to be in that place of curiosity and deeper awakening and deeper knowing of your own self and what this little one has to bring into the world and connecting with that light that little one brings into. I mean, so many different aspects. Am I on the right path with that? On the difference?
Well, and I would say that we can probably most of our listeners can relate to grandparents that we know that we felt were awesome, and then maybe grandparents that we know that we felt maybe we don't remember as much or don't connect with as much because maybe, for whatever that grandparent's own life journey and all. I would say that the definition of fun between what we might consider traditional grandparenting and sacred grandparenting might be a little different. And traditional grandparenting, I would take as the definition of fun might be that we really might see this is an opportunity to, in fact, to spoil and to do things that we might have always wanted to do with our own children and we didn't get to. And we have the sense of freedom. We don't have a responsibility for them now. We send them back to mom and dad. There might be some justice, as you were talking about there a little bit. And there might even be a little of, hey, I know better. And so when they're with me, I'm going to do it differently than mom and dad want it to be done. The definition of fun in that way, I would say, is really soothing our own inner child. It's not soothing so much our grandchild. And so again, this is case by case, goodness gracious. There's so many beautiful ways to treat our grandchildren that are honoring to them, that are fun and all. The fun way for sacred parenting, just very generally, because we could talk a lot about this, is really where we would be creating more a vehicle for harmony, enjoying the child as they are, seeing that child for the fun that they already are and tapping into the fun that the child is instead of trying to create fun for them to be attracted to. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
So here, cookies and cake and candy and all might be fun that we think, oh, they can be attracted to and all. If that is what the parents support, that's fine. If they don't support that, we may be on thin ice a little bit. But seeing the child where they're at and crafting environments from where they're at is really what's fun for the child.
Yeah, right.
Number one, let's talk about the similarities between both. Number one, most all grandparents love their grandchildren, and you cannot put a price on that. So however a grandparent chooses to show their love, number one, we need to recognize it's love. It's coming from a place of love. And that's what we would hope for, whether it's traditional, sacred, whatever the approach might be. And when it is offered with love and seen as an act of love and not as an act of control or an act of ego, which sometimes we grandparents get in our own way with those kinds of things. And again, if we can stay aware of, are we really soothing our own inner child that didn't get these things when we were little? To be aware of that just brings us as a different person to our grandchild. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong that we're soothing our own inner child. Our own inner child needs to be hugged and loved and appreciated and valued too. It's just if we outpicture it onto our grandchildren, then we may not be seeing who they are and what they really need in this moment. They may really just need to roll down the hill in the leaves when in fact we brought them all kinds of gifts today.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I'm all about roll down the hill in the leaves. That's so much better than
Well, to that I would say, as a sacred grandparent, we've got to, I'm mindful of our time, Nada, and everything, but could I offer a couple of tips for sacred grandparents? Would that be okay?
Yes, please do.
Number one, I would say it's up to us to stay curious, really to stay curious about the child, about life, about our children as they're evolving as parents, and about ourselves. We need to also handle our own self-care so that we can do things like roll down the hill in the leaves, Nada, that it's not just always about them, that we can participate in some of these. And we really need to be mindful of our own energy, like be responsible for the energy that we bring to things, to keep a respectful distance, don't take things personally, and stay in our own lane sometimes and really be that beacon, emit love, emit joy, and forgiveness and gratitude as much as we can. And we really need to realize also, let's see, what did I say? I said curious, self-care, mind your energy. Those are three things. Here's the fourth thing. Wisdom is not correlated with age. So we've got to work on ourselves. Be aware of our own filters. Just because we're older doesn't mean we're wiser. It's not a fact. And if we can continue to cultivate our own senses, which would be, I think that's number 5, and that's the inner and the outer senses, which you and I will have another discussion on another time. But that's our own discernment process. The last thing is really that if we can stay in that mode of play, that fun, that mode of play, play is an energy that transmutes trauma. And so the more that we can be in an area of play, in the words that we use, in the energy we bring to things, the more we can actually be a healing part of our extended family matrix rather than something else, like an obstacle or anything else.
Right. Absolutely. I love these tips. And these will be written out in the show notes. So anybody who's listening, if you heard those tips and you were scrambling to get a piece of paper and a pen to write this down, it will all be in the show notes. So don't worry about that. And Kathleen, we're going to bring this in for a kind of a bumpy landing here. I'm going to do it a little bit abruptly because we're out of time. I cannot even believe that. What is the best way for listeners to get in touch with you? And that will also be in the show notes. So anybody who's listening, please don't worry. Kathleen's information will be in the show notes, but I would love for you to tell us how to get in contact with you.
Yeah, there is KathleenScherek.com, and my email would be Kathleen@KathleenScherek.com, and that would be the best way.
Okay, perfect. And again,
I welcome listeners, grandparents, aunts, uncles, teachers, doulas. We're all a part of supporting the child. So thank you, Nada, for having these discussions. This is fun.
Oh, it's totally fun. I love it. There's just never enough time. And you're exactly right. It takes an entire village. It's everybody. It's everybody with that little one. And for ourselves too. We all need to kind of, like, we're all in this together, and we can do it in a loving and wonderful way without any ego involved in it. It just takes a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of work, but we can absolutely do that. So, Kathleen, I appreciate it so much. We have so many more things to talk about. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to come back next week, and if we can talk more about mothers, and business women and mothers, and get deep into that for next week. Would you be willing to do that?
Absolutely. Let's do that. That's all of these are important. Would love it. I'll talk to you then.
Okay, fabulous. All right. Thank you so much for being here with us. Listeners, please join us next week for part 2, and leave any comments below that you would like to. And the show notes will have Kathleen's information. So thank you again, Kathleen. And to the listeners, much love. Enjoy your most epic week, and we will talk to you next week. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please go to nadahogan.com for show notes and other information you can use right away. If you like what you heard here, please subscribe to our show, and don't forget to rate and review right there on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you get your shows. And don't forget to tell your friends about it. We'll see you next week.